Welcome to Your Story Doesn't End Here, the mental health podcast of military and veterans who refuse to be silenced. I'm your host, Rachel, and my mission with this podcast is to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, bring awareness to mental health issues, provide value and solutions, and to change the culture when it comes to mental health within the DoD organizations. Okay, today's guest is Eric Konetka. He served 21 years in the Navy, retired as an ATC Chief Petty Officer, and he is currently retired for a little over a year as a student at University of Arizona and has one kid and his wife. Thanks so much, Eric, for being on the show today.
Hey, no problem, Rachel. It's kind of my first time going at this, so I'll do my best. So my story, it's not really so much my story. I'll start at the beginning, and then I'll kind of wrap up into how it ended. But it's not really my story as much as it is a number of people's stories. So I joined the military back in 1999 for reasons. I just wanted to get the hell out of my hometown, basically. Now, the mental health, since this is what this is focusing on in the military, was kind of non-existent. Now, did programs exist for this mental health, like to help people with mental health? Probably. I didn't know. Essentially, my entire day was go to work, come home. That was it. I probably came in the military with a lot of undiagnosed stuff that I didn't know about. That seems to be a common theme amongst a lot of military members. Let's see. No, as time goes on, you get up in ranks. I just pretty much took a test, made a rank. And I started noticing as you get higher in rank, you start noticing a bigger picture. You start becoming in charge of folks, not just about you. So you see other people going through stuff that you've never seen before. You're like, what is this? What is that? Really hit me hard. Probably around the time I started entering my late first class, early chief years. Because after about the 10-year mark, you're given F level kind of goes away as far as really trying to impress folks. Because I've been trying to make rank for so long, you just stop caring, you just start doing what you do. And apparently people liked what I did. So roughly around the time I was in Japan is when I started noticing kind of a shift. Probably my mentality. I had to start taking care of other people. It kind of the dynamic switched from me being about myself to more about other people. So I had the opportunity to do my first foray, I think that's the right word, into a program that is designed literally to help people. And that program, as you may know, is known as the SAPR VA program. So that was my first real dig into this world. Anyways, I had to quit after a year. The reason being, if you're going to be a SAPR VA, you cannot relate to your victims that you help. The problem was I was becoming more of a psychologist counselor than I was an actual victim advocate. It's really hard to be neutral when you see some of the nasty stuff that you see. Men, women, doesn't matter. Now, a lot of people like to put VA stuff, SAPR stuff attach it to women. Men are there. You just don't hear about it because they don't report easy day. Well, not really easy day. It's bad for them, but for paperwork, it's an easy day. But that's why your statistics are so off. Which that's sort of where it became less of my story and more. I'll wrap up to my story again near the end, but less of my story and more other people's. So, Japan, that was where it started. I was a year. God, what year was I in the military? 13 years in, I think, 14 years. It's been a while. You got to forgive my memory issues. And Afghanistan, too. You see it a lot there. You see the dynamic shift. It's weird. People are hesitant to get help. The reason isn't because the help isn't there to get. It's because there are plenty of programs. There's more than enough people to help. It's that bridge. It's the getting to those people. It's that middle. It's the road to get to that help. That's broken. And I noticed, especially looking at a lot of your podcasts, I noticed that road's still there. It really kind of broke my heart to hear some of the things I heard. And I was like, wow, that's number one, some kind of piss poor mentorship that happened in that end. I've helped plenty of people. I've seen a lot of folks seen domestic violence. I've been a victim of domestic abuse myself. Yes, a female domestically abused me by the paperwork. Let's see. I've seen men that were victims of women rape. I've seen women that were victims of male rape and vice versa. I've seen a child that well, that was a hard one for me, was when I saw a child pass away. That was the worst one. Seen friends pass away and whatnot. But yeah, always, no matter what, there's always a stigma behind getting mental health. Always. And again, it's not from the end game. It's the path to get there. It's generally the folks you got to get through to get to the mental health stuff. You're still active duty, so you have to go to your chain of command to even go get an appointment. In reality, no, you don't. You can actually tell your chain of command to F off, and if they want to get to a Devo commander CO level, well, they've got jobs to protect too, and unfortunately, their jobs are more people oriented than they are maintenance. But the problem is, a lot of people don't know how empowered they are. So, now coming around to my story and how I learned all this the hard way. So again, I mentioned I was a victim of domestic assault by an old ex-girlfriend of mine. You might wonder, a dude with this beard and long hair and biker looking fellow. But I wasn't always this way. I was under the stigma that men cannot touch women at all, or they get hit with abuse of any kind. And it didn't help the fact that she said if I touched her, she'd yell rape and I'd get thrown in jail. At that point in time, I was about 2 weeks shy of transferring out of there to go to Hawaii. So I didn't want to jeopardize anything. Here's what she did. She basically prevented me from leaving the house, and it was just all kinds of verbal abusive slurs and whatnot. I had to sit there and take it. Eventually, I managed to get out. She stole a bunch of my, and I left for 2 weeks to hang with friends. That's where I stayed while she was getting all her stuff packed away and going back home. She destroyed a lot of my property and stole it. Grand theft, actually, it was over a few $1,000s. Yeah. Well, I finally the logic part of my brain kicked in. She was at the airport. I had called the police, and they stopped her at the airport from going home. And the cop said that I could actually press charge on her for federal kidnapping because she locked me inside of a domicile. Yeah. That was my first experience with mine. That's where my eyes started opening a bit. And I did a restrict report, but I did let people in my command know what was going on, and the amount of give a damn I got was non-existent. They didn't care as long as I was at work the next day. Now, this was 2008, I want to say. So about 14, 15 years ago. You're never going to guess the command this one happened to. I don't mind throwing them out there because they were fledgling at this point. The newly formed FRC Northwest. Hi, FRC Northwest. Yes, this old retired vet knows about your silliness. Anyways, from there, I transferred out of that command. I went to Hawaii, Japan, and that's where, I started seeing the other side with other people. And I came back to the States. And I noticed something interesting about the States. This is where the other people start coming in, big time, is that when I joined the command VQ1, I noticed, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate from the VQ1 upper chain of command for saying this about them, but they only give a shit about the mission at the time. They didn't give a shit about the people. And they can hate me and spit off all kinds of dribble they want to in my DMs and Facebook, but that's the way I saw it. And, I hadn't been in Whidbey for 18 years, so that kind of already put me on a black mark. Yeah, I was chief going in there and tried to make my mark and try to change the mess from within. But when you have the good old boys club, man, it makes it hard. So what I saw a young girl that had been sexually assaulted 2 years prior that was being refused help because they thought she was just being a whiny bitch. I went against the norm, and I said, if you can trust me, I can get you all the help you need. She threw caution to the wind and trusted this old son of a bitch, and got the help she needed. Now she's medically retired out of the military and living one of her best lives with her husband, has a kid now. So all kinds of stories, all kinds of stuff I'd rather not go into. And I even had a really, really, really high upper chain of command person, as I was eavesdropping, sitting on the couch inside the chief's mess, say that he thought anybody with mental health issues was a big whiny baby. That kind of put the flavor in my mouth for what kind of people I was dealing with. Another incident happened, and this is where I actually had to start getting treated because it just kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back after all the stuff you see, is when I had my son. So my son, when he was being born, he had the umbilical wrapped around him like a fishing line, tangled fishing line, and he was almost died. My son almost died in birth. Yeah. Fortunately, doctors are badass. They know what they're doing. Nurses and midwives, they're all just amazing. Anyway, so that happened. He's fine. Obviously, now he's a butthead, but that's what 3-year-olds are. They're buttheads. I call up my commander. I need to extend my leave, or I need to put in leave straight away because you get pittance for paternal leave in the military, which is sad. I hope one day they change that, but I digress. I had to call in to my chain of command, who was a fellow chief as well at the time, which was unusual for me because I went from being a division / branch division, like an actual division officer style chief, to a branch chief, which is just a filler job. It means nothing. Anyways, I had to talk to the division chief and let him know, hey man, I got to go on leave. And he basically yelled at me for not using my chief brain and putting in leave too soon. And he had to explain the divo and a bunch of other stuff and Mo about how I was taking leave, and he was upset about it. Told me to use my chief brain. And I said, bro, I told him the story, and he says, get over it. Told me to get over it. And that was about time I just shut that command down. I was like, no, we're not doing this anymore. And I broke the mold. Did I go on deployment VQ1? Nope. Here's why. Because the sailors at home needed the help they weren't getting. And I took it upon myself my last few years in the Navy to at least be a stable figure for those guys. If they're going to have anybody to at least come talk to and give some old person advice from, then at least they could have a familiar face. Bare minimum. I didn't care about evals. I didn't care about anything. I already made the decision I was going to leave by then. So my performance mattered very little to me. And for the most part, it worked. I had a lot of people to this day. I have a lot of guys actually asking me, guys and girls both, ask me for references, and they get out. You came and found me. Apparently, a few other people I didn't know still actually talked about me. I even had one tell me I changed your life. I didn't know I did that. I was just doing what I did because I needed to do it. But before I got out, I noticed something about myself that I hadn't. And I remember I'm a chief petty officer at this time, so I could kind of say, screw you all. I'm doing what I want to do, which is I wish a lot of other people would have the ability to do. I said I was getting angry at everything. I mean, legitimately angry at everything. I saw the chief petty officers that were doing things, and I was honestly holding back from just choke slamming some bitches. Forgive my language. Saw upper officers doing things, and I was like, this is appalling. Are you serious? This is the leadership we have to deal with? What happened to you people? Why did the dynamic shift to you guys caring more about your jobs and your sailors? When did that happen? I had been away. I've been OCONUS for 10 years, and I come back. This is what the U.S. is like. No wonder everybody's having issues. But I was angry, so angry, and I would vent, and I would have I wound up. I had GERD. My insides were literally tearing themselves apart through stress. So I had a friend of mine. She came up to me and she said, Eric, I see you. You need to go get help. She says, fuck it. Excuse me, my language again. She said, screw everything. Well, I don't care what people say. You need to focus on you and your family. Go get some mental health. I've never done mental health before. Been in the military almost 20 years before, and there's a huge stigma behind going to mental health. And I was like, okay, why not? The heck with it. It's better for me, better for my son. So I went there. So here, let me nutshell everything that is now part of my medical record for you. I have PTSD, not combat related PTSD. I didn't know I had. I have GERD. I have 2 busted shoulders. I have sleep apnea. I have what else do I have? I have busted knees. I have perpetual migraines. I got all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I'm 100%. Yay. But had I not had that push from a friend of mine, I'd have never known to do it. So at that point forward, my last few years in the Navy, I was all about advocacy. Again, I went right back into advocacy again. Didn't even know I did it, but I did it unofficially. I was like, you need help? Go. I don't care. So people started giving me their broken and unwanted, I guess, I was in safety at the very last bit, and people gave me their broken and unwanted, and I turned them into something else. I gave them options. I said, no, you're just because I don't care. This command, this eval, this whole thing is only a blink of an eye. It means nothing. No shit. I could tell you this, being outside of the military, you know how many people from the Chiefs mess I still keep in contact around the board, doesn't matter where, like 2. It's like high school. You have maybe one good friend. And to this day, I still am advocacy for mental health stuff. Like I encourage anybody who comes to me, even people that treated me poorly in the military, I say, go to the DAV, go to the VA, go get yourself some assist. Don't be ashamed. There's no more people looking at you. You don't have to be buddy with your other brothers, or whatever. And it's surprised being out of the military is actually probably one of the more enlightening things I've ever done than being in. But yeah, I am a huge advocate of mental health. I'm one of the few, though. Unfortunately, most people are, as I said before, most people in the military are worried about their sweeping stuff under the rug, so they can be promoted without having any issues. You'd be surprised how many people don't know how to handle tough issues. They talk a big game, everybody does until it happens, which is something that I kind of divined on listening to a few of your podcasts. Actually, some of these E5 and below. Like the young lady who's in 7 years, who apparently they just gave her flack about her body weight and it tore her apart. That's sad. The military standards for body fat are completely archaic and need to be readjusted considerably. You ask any medical professional about the military standards of like, we'd over medicate and kill you guys if we use DCA. Yeah, VA, by the way, absolutely hates military medicine. Absolutely hates it. Then I heard the other young lady, you and I know her mutually, about A school, C school, about you either be a slut or be a bitch. Now, if I would have heard that, me personally, if I would have heard that, she put out there, and I'm pretty sure you can vouch for me at this point, I would have taken both of them under my wing, and I would have been like, you want to break that culture, you stop perpetuating it. That's messed up. The fact that she had to be exposed to that side. And that's the thing is, what interesting about that is for her was the norm, but it's not the norm, if that makes any sense. Most people just want to do their job and go home. Maybe have a drink with a few friends or whatnot. The fact that she got exposed to that such a, I hope she stays in. I hope she keeps growing and learns from it, so she could become a female advocate for her junior sailors. So she could be like, no, this ain't the way. I hope she does. She's a smart woman. Again, like I said, I'm also proud of you for doing this as well. Get your awareness. And then Jay, I said his name, but Jay, he's the other one podcast. Heard about him in the single file thing. Oh, that poor man. My heart bleeds for him because he was getting like zero support being a lower enlisted and not higher ranking. And I'm like, man, these people want to bring up all these folks that to replace. Okay, so I digress. The issue is that everybody wants to be. The goal is to be replaced. Seriously, you want to be replaced. I don't want to be a chief petty. I didn't want to be a chief petty officer forever. I would have died by the time I was 45. Easy day. The problem is that the people don't want to train their replacements. They want to keep the perpetual stigma of mental health bad, do your job good. And now the military is starting to suffer retention because of it. Unfortunately, all the cats like me are coming out and be like, no, go here, don't go there. It's kind of a unfortunate state of events, and that's again, I'm going back on my track again. That's how I came to why I do what I do, why I did what I did. Why? Because I was a victim of it at one point, and I'm like, this feels horrible. Why the fuck would anybody want to go through this? And then as you get up in rank, you see it starting to happen to other people, and then the surprising amount of the upper chain of senior enlisted and officers that simply don't give a shit is mind-boggling, and it disgusted me. And the one of the biggest reasons I left the military was because it wasn't the military I joined, not because everybody was a pansy, because everybody cared about their jobs and not their sailors, and that's what really drove me insane. They all wanted to get promoted, they all wanted to keep their job, they're all scared shitless of getting higher tenured out. They didn't know what to do with themselves, so they would do anything and everything to promote themselves. Little do they know that as long as they do it right and do their benefits before date of the discharge, they can get their VA rating 1 month after they get out of the military and they're fine. So the moral story is the people are there to help. They always are. There are tons of people to help. There are tons of resources to help. What's broken is the bridges and roads that lead to those people. That's what's broken. And I think that's the biggest thing that needs to change. But anyways, my story is it's not all of it, but it is my story, but it's a lot more about other people than it is so much me.
I appreciate you sharing.
I would actually love to get into kind of some of the secrets of the Chief's mess, if you don't mind sharing.
I don't care anymore. Go for it. Well,
because you hear from so many lower enlisted that the problem is the Chief's mess. The problem is the Chief's mess. And, at some point, it has to be this disconnect from lower enlisted to hitting that upper enlisted leadership. And I don't know if you can provide more insight on this. I don't know if it's something that happens when you're going through like your chief season to be a chief, or if it's just kind of something that's indoctrinated once you become a chief and you just feel like you have to be part of this. Obviously, you were separate from that mold of the good old boys club, so they say.
Yeah.
But I guess it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the idea that every single person that makes chief is quote unquote a bad person. So I'm trying to figure out at what point everyone just kind of becomes this clan and says, fuck everyone else, for lack of a better word. And I don't know, maybe you can provide insight on that.
No, yeah, the stereotype about the Chiefs mess just being a bunch of fucking frat boys. All right, so the Chiefs mess is a brotherhood. It is a fraternity. It is legitimately a fraternity. But just because it is a brotherhood doesn't mean people don't have to give a shit. Okay, so some insight. So you would be surprised. So the Chiefs mess does have a specific amount of power, but not as much as you would think. They can influence more than they can legally do stuff, if that makes any sense whatsoever. All right, so the initiation process is it's a stressful one for all involved. Sometimes it gets to people's head, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on how much Kool-Aid you drink prior to getting in the initiation. But overall, it is indeed so the Chiefs mess is designed to be like kind of the Chiefs mess initiation process is designed to be a kind of a imagine boot camp, how they broke you down. Like, at the end, I don't know if you guys heard that Bruce Springsteen thing where like proud to be an American, everybody cried. That right there. Now, would you go back and do it? Now, you don't know. You don't know how you'd be, but you were mentally just obliterated by then. And that's kind of what the initiation process is meant to do, obliterate you. That's why you get those first year chiefs that are like, who the hell are you? Well, two flavors. They either have to come back to reality, which some do fast, some don't, or they just become a completely different person. They become the person they've always been. You just didn't know it. I wish the Chiefs would be promoted based off of merit and then an exam, and that has its own unique challenges if you do it that way. So, anyways, so the Chiefs mess. The Chiefs mess is actually okay. So honestly, it depends on where you go. I've seen good. I've seen terrible. Oh God, I've seen god awful Chiefs messes. I've seen some of the most phenomenal Chiefs messes. Ironically enough, I don't know if this is ironic, that defines the term, but the best messes I've ever seen are overseas when they're far away from all the stigma and nonsense that CONUS has. They have to be close knit. They have to take care of themselves and their people. And you're always going to get those people who are like, oh, they suck. This is the way it always is. It's funny that you say that too about how the Chiefs mess sucks. Well, sometimes the Chiefs mess flips and says, these junior sailors these days, it's like the millennials and baby boomers going at it. It's hilarious. So not everybody that joins the mess is a bad person. However, if you got a mess full of the quote unquote good old boys or bad Chiefs mess or a weak one, those good guys will get overshadowed by the bad ones. Just because if you're a piece of shit second, you're a piece of shit first. If you're a piece of shit first, you're a piece of shit chief. Now you're a piece of shit chief that has authority and is heard by officers, which is annoying. It's just the way it is. So okay. So Chiefs mess. Again, good and bad, both in there. They're limited in the power they have. The true power always lies within the skipper. Okay. So if the skipper has something that comes from TICOM, that comes from the Pentagon, higher up, etc., one of the first rules of the Chiefs mess is they have to be authoritative figures, for better or worse, even if it doesn't make sense. They have to enforce a rule, especially if it's a national, kind of a national issue. And much like people's parents, they don't have to give reasons why, and they generally don't. which I think would help alleviate a lot of issues if like, the chief would come up and be like, hey, XYZ rule. And instead of saying, because I said so, and, spanking you like the area kid, they'd be like, all right, this is what's going on to warrant this instruction. And we kind of need to follow it. Otherwise we all suck. That would probably help a bit more, but that's kind of not the way. Tact isn't exactly given to during the initiation. It's more like my way or the highway. They mimic other chiefs they've known in the past. And yeah. So again, the power comes a lot from the CO. DRBs are a big one. A lot of people see DRBs and they're like, DRBs is just a bunch of chiefs yelling at you. And that's true. That's a bunch of chiefs yelling at you. Sometimes it gets a little out of hand. But note that the DRB section, even though it's scary as hell to have all these people you have in front of you, that you probably a little pee coming out of you. Even the biggest talkers are they get scared out of those conditions. DRB is meant to more like assess a situation than it is to actually accuse, even though it eventually devolves into accusing. But again, a DRB doesn't actually punish them. It can give you like extra duty and stuff like that, but it's not going to ruin your career. The XO and CO have the ultimate decision on that one. Something a lot of the chiefs forget is that yes, they are authoritative. Yes, they're supposed to be based upon their experience is what's supposed to make them like kind of admirable, I guess. I don't know what word I'm looking for. A good leader kind of thing. Like they know, okay, don't twist this bolt that way, otherwise they'll fling in your eye. That's where that kind of is supposed to come from. But again, it's but the disconnect. The disconnect, I think, comes from kind of a lack of explanation from the chief giving you the orders. Like, you guys hear from the skipper at quarters, and okay, that's just the way it is. The skipper, he's the boss. This is how it is. This comes from a chief, and he's like, oh, he's just being an asshole. Then 9 times out of 10, I'd say about 50-50 shot. Sometimes he might be being an asshole. There are times, like specifically when, like an AMI, for instance, comes through, and all of a sudden all these dudes get their panties in a twist. It's like, dude, if you're screwed up now, you're screwed up. That's it. Don't even worry about it. But you'll see some people trying to make a name for himself, and I think. I don't know if that really answered your question. I don't think it did. I'm trying to come up with.
I mean, what I got from what you said is that if you're just a certain way, you're just going to exemplify that.
It does
hit a leadership rank, which makes sense. Do they have legitimate leadership training at any point for chiefs, like any continuing training? Any initial training, or is it more like the PO and doc where it's just like, here you go?
Well, okay. So short answer, no. Long answer, yes, but at a very specific level. E8 and E9. That's why you see a bunch of chiefs running around. The chiefs, the E7s, will do how their mess will kind of angle themselves the way their mess is, the way their chiefs and their mess are. Usually a good CMC will come through and you can course correct the hell out of a chief's messy day. But no, there is no continuing. I mean, there is, okay, I take that back. Is it effective? No. There is like, I think I can't remember if it's a weekly or monthly. There's a monthly or 6 months. I can't remember. There's a specific interval to this training, but it's literally just a paperwork drill. It's a bunch of chiefs sitting in a room, being rowdy as they usually are, listening to some really old chief talk about everything shitty and back in their day. And about how usually it's a dude that's been in an upper command position like CMC or not a CMC of any specific command, like a TICOM CMC, like a big, like a wing CMC. They'll come by and say how crappy things are, and people nod and smile and do what they want to do, but then they'll nod and smile and do the thing. And then they go back to their collective chief's mess. They'll simply go back to the way they were. It didn't really impact them.
So it's like every other training in the Navy.
Absolutely. Basically. One of the most ineffective things in paperwork training.
Do you think that it would be more effective to have someone outside of the military come in and train the chiefs? Or really anyone, I guess, in general?
Ooh, there's a tricky one. So, again, yes and no. here's why I say yes and no. If the military is more of a corporation, kind of like if you know what's, I'm about to nerd out on you, but you know, like the Blizzard Activision issue going on right now, they have a bunch of sexual assault cases and stuff. Yes, that would be a good time to have an outside person come in and be like, WTF. However, if an outside entity were to come into the military and try to grade the chief's mess, a non-military entity, I think everybody would be put in jail, honestly. Reason being, not because everybody sucks or whatnot, is because the military has a different way of doing things than the civilian sector. The civilian sector has laws and regulations, and there is a lot more leeway in the way the military is ran than there is in the corporate section. You get sued, you get fired, you can go to jail, fraud, you know, there's the list of laws and OSHA standards are amazing outside. So if you're having an agency trained specifically in that way of doing things, and they were to come and say grade the chief's mess on that kind of stuff, you probably wouldn't have very many chiefs left in the military. Not because they're bad, but sometimes the legal paperwork way is not the most effective way. And if you break that, actually, that brings me to another point. I'll come back to it. Again, the paperwork way is not the best way. Sometimes the rules are meant to be broken because the rules are 20 years outdated. So if a person were to come in outside entity, take all the rules in the Navy, God, the thousands of them that exist, and bring that into a command to audit them, the command would fail horribly, especially the upper leadership. Not because the upper leadership sucks. That's here and there. It's because in order to make a decision, you can't. If you're getting shot at, you're not going to be like, well, what's section 3 of 14 say? It doesn't work that way. If you got a guy who is guy or girl, whatever, who is aggressive as hell during a disciplinary review board and starts wanting to punch out chiefs, and you've got to literally hold this dude back. Well, that's illegal. You can't do that. However, do you put this guy in a lot, like a freaking headlock, and hold him down so he doesn't hurt anybody else, or just let him? Oh, I can't touch this guy, otherwise, you know, I'll legally get put into a bind, and have him just beat the hell and kill people. You know, those are the kind of decisions you have to make on the fly. The rules are meant for long-term decisions; they're not meant for instantaneous decisions. Yeah, I would say yes and no. If it was something big like sexual assault rampant, you need to bring somebody outside in, coming in and be like, WTF, mate. And especially, I wish they would have something like a boss, like a hidden boss thing, you know. That'd be cool. But in that case, where it's something like very, very specific, like sexual assault or abuse or something to that matter, yes, by all means, bring an outside entity in, because that's your snap decision making needs to go out the fucking window. These people are getting hurt. You can't do that. When it comes to everyday military life, that's a hard one.
So do you think that with issues like these major issues like mental health, suicide, domestic violence, all these things that are kind of somewhat collaterals in the Navy, but kind of pushed to the chief's level when, say, a junior sailor is dealing with it, do you think that they well equip chiefs E7 and above in the military to really handle these issues? And I ask that specifically because me personally, there's chiefs that I've talked to when I was in that I could tell there was a level of discomfort there in talking about these issues. And to me, that screams, okay, you're not prepared or you're not equipped for this. So I'm curious if they do anything to really prepare chiefs to have these like really tough conversations with junior sailors.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Again, it depends on the person and their experience level. You got two flavors of chiefs: one who's been through it, and ones who just got there based off of what's on their eval. Chiefs are ill prepared for that because they're people. Take away the chief, and they're just people. Or like your managers, or like your CEOs. The unfortunate reality is, regardless of what rank you are ill prepared unless you've been through it. You got your book, cool, whatever, but that doesn't help you. It doesn't help you. It's very good for paperwork, to fill out the paperwork at the end of the day. But no, it's the Chiefs, E6s, E5s. Everybody's on very ill-equipped unless they've been through it, or they have a friend, or they know somebody, or they've been personally akin. But no, as much as the Chiefs mess wants to puff up their chest, same with officers. None of them are equipped to it. I think the closest person that would be equipped to deal with damn near all of that would be the actual upper officers, like the skipper, the XO, who like live in that environment. The one thing the mess does have that needs to be encouraged in the lower rankings, specifically E6, is they have themselves to rely upon. So if you shoot a Facebook message out and be like, hey, I've never seen this before. What the hell? And if that E70 chief, senior chief, whoever isn't gonna, it doesn't want it, isn't the whole I don't want to deal with it thing because I like my life the way it is. If the worst their gumption, they'll reach out and try to find help for that issue. There's no shame in asking, hey, what the hell do I do? I mean, I had a kid pass away on me. I didn't know what the hell to do. Nobody did. I was like, well, what do I do? Oh my God. But I wish the problem is I wish that mentality would be brought down to at least baby steps, the next pay grade down, the E6 level, because Chiefs want E6s to be them. They're not them. E6s are worried about making chief. They're not worried about being a chief. So ill-equipped, extremely. Over time, they can become better. But by then, they're probably a higher ranking person. You're told to use your chain of command and stuff. And yeah, it's so no, Chiefs are not prepared. Not prepared initially unless they've been through something similar or they've already held that kind of collateral duty. Like if they've been a sapper or suicide prevention person, they've been through it before as an E5 and an E6, then yeah, they're more than prepared as an E7. There were a couple of Chiefs and VQ's mess that were like legit on spot. They wouldn't. The CMC would not give their collateral to anybody else because that person, like the how was it the DAPA stuff. You become so well versed in that's like that is you are this now because kind of passing it on to somebody else and that vacuum of no experience. The knowledge is easy. You can just read a book. It's the experience that matters. That vacuum of inexperience is a cause like can actually hurt a lot. But overall, I'd say about if you're going to pie graph it, I'd say about a good 3/4 to 7/8 of any chief that initially comes into the Chiefs mess. They're absolutely horribly ill-equipped.
That's what I figured, but hear it directly from the horse's mouth. So
well, you like that's just it. It's just sometimes your assumptions. Sometimes the simplest answer is the correct answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned when you were telling your story that you kind of did your own thing because you kind of went against the grain or went against the mold of what was.
I had to.
What was the normal? Do you think that you were kind of ostracized or treated differently for doing that by chiefs and other people above you?
Oh yeah. Well, not the people above me. Chiefs mess definitely. The officers and like the commanders and skippers and XOs and stuff that I worked with, they fucking love me because I didn't care, and I'd be blunt with them. Pissed off a lot of OPSOs, by the way. But no, the officers that were in charge of my programs or whatever it was, they loved me. The Chiefs mess themselves hated me because I wasn't one of them. I wasn't trying to like, why isn't this guy trying to get his the funny thing is, even without these qualifications, all this stuff, I still knew more than half those people. But yeah, no, absolutely. If I wasn't falling into the mold. They didn't know me again because I hadn't been in that community for however many decades or what it was, so they had no clue how I operated. But yeah, no, absolutely, I was ostracized. I didn't care. Again, once you get that finalization of, well, I think what happened to me is I was so late coming in as a chief. Like I had, as a first class, already given up. I already like, I'm never going to fucking be chief. I'll just keep doing my thing. And when I get that mentality, boom, I got it. I was like, son of a bitch. So I never thought I'd go any further. I never did. But I mean, I actually did. I got a new rank called veteran. Yeah, a new rank called veteran. So yeah, definitely got ostracized. Absolutely. If you don't follow there's some chiefs mess, not everybody. If you don't follow the pattern, they will definitely they point you out. It'll reflect deeply in your evals.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a commonality throughout the ranks in the military, but I know the Chiefs mess is such a more of like a tight-knit community that I can't imagine that it wouldn't weigh on someone's mental health being in an environment where the people that are supposed to be your like family are ostracizing you. Did you ever feel that way?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Again, I had the story about where the kid was born and And then I heard about and I had that CMC talk about mental health for what's this kind of thing. And he knew I was going to mental health to deal with my anger issues. I was kind of like, are you guys kidding me right now? So everybody likes to puff and show their chest. I just did it behind the scenes. I wouldn't do it in front of the mess or anything. I just simply go behind the scenes and talk directly to the people. That can make a difference. There was no point in talking to the mess as a whole because number one, they didn't trust me because I wasn't a plane handler or not plane handler, production controller. I didn't get their call because my priorities shifted somewhere else. They make it impossible to get the damn qualification too. But yeah, no, my issues shifted too. Maybe it's because I had so much shit that I was dealing with in Japan, but my issues shifted to why aren't these sailors being taken care of? Why do we only care about the state of this aircraft and hobbling it over to a dead site and then letting them actually repair it than we do about these? Oh my God, you got literal rape victims chilling out in your command right now. You don't give a shit. You just want their evals looking good. By the way, that's an actual thing.
Yeah, I know. And that command specifically, I think.
They weren't the only ones. There's another command. I got another. That command was not the worst. The worst command I've ever been to was by far VP 47 when they were in Hawaii. They had IGs called on them. Yeah, the MMCPO got fired, a bunch of other shit.
Yeah, that's why I think, like, for me, and part of the thing with this podcast is understanding that it's not even just a Navy-wide issue, it's a military-wide issue. And even in some aspects, mental health specifically, it's like a countrywide, worldwide issue. But, obviously we're just talking about military here. But for the listeners that don't know, could you kind of walk through what the process of making chief looks like? Because obviously it's a little different than just taking a test. Or, for some other branches, making E7 has nothing to do with the test. But if you could just briefly walk through for people who don't know, what does it look like to go from E6 to E7?
From E6 to E7, nutshelling it, it's kind of a shock. I'll put it that way. But in order to make E7, okay, so the first things you got to do, that archaic POS test you got to take in the military. You have to pass it. That's just the reality of the beast. You have to pass it. I didn't say I had to do good on it. I just said you have to pass it. That's the first step. The second step, that's a tricky one too, because you'll get different flavors of this one. You'll say, "Oh, you need A, B, C, D, and E," or you need this, or you need to do this, you need this. Here's what I could tell you what got me. I'm 95% sure got me to Chiefs mess. So you've heard the term CPO 365, right? Okay. So when that concept initially came out, I accidentally got roped into becoming the first class. Accidentally, it was on purpose, but I got roped into being the first class lead of CPOA in a program that had never existed. And so essentially, okay, so side story, chiefs are lazy. They are, most of them. And they relied on the first class lead, which would happen to me at the time, to come up with all these events to get all this stuff in, and then I would bring it to them and they'd be like, "No, it's stupid," but they themselves have never done anything. So I was essentially in charge of the entirety of the first classes on the command and all the chiefs in the command too. Now, granted, I started learning real quick. I lost my professionalism real quick with senior chiefs and master chiefs. I went up to master chief once and said, with respect, senior chief, what the fuck is going on? I don't care anymore. You reprimand me. What the hell's up with this dude? This guy's giving me grief. This guy's one of yours. Who is he? And he just started laughing. He's like, "You're finally getting it." I'm like, funny, haha. What the hell do I do? And I put that on me, Bill. So I essentially said I was the initial. I basically was a lead for all the first class and chiefs in a specific event. And I think because of that is what pushed me over the edge. I did my job well for years and years. Oh my God, man, I could throw people on the bus with troubleshooting and replacing components on circuit cards. The whole gambit. It meant nothing. Meant jack shit. I gave 100% once and they took it. So I made a motto to myself, show 70%, give 100%. I did my job well, did it all, did the checks and blocks of that one, man. I was the master of my trade when I was doing it. the next block, they're like, what have you done to lead people? And so, well, I was like, I led everybody. Are you serious? I'm literally, my hair is gray because of these chiefs and other first classes that are older than me. That you think a 38-year-old would know not to do some of the stuff they do, but here we are. My 3-year-olds are better behaved. And I think that's what pushed me over the edge, is because I was in an event that allowed me to be a chief without being a chief, like the actual chief, not what, people like, oh, the rules and enforcement off. No, the guy that you can come to and be like, hey, chief, what am I doing in this situation? I'm like, the hell if I know, let's go find out, or, oh yeah, I've seen this before. Go here, here, and here. Or better yet, let's just go together and I can drop everything I do and go help you out, while E5s take care of the actual work in the Navy, which was what they're supposed to do. They are literally the ones doing it. But I think that was mine specifically. What would get you to chief, or what would get somebody else to chief? It's a crapshoot. It honestly is. What I could tell you to do is do well at your job, get your quals if you want to get them. I mean, do what you can. But the biggest thing they're looking for, and it's all really on how it's written, is, are you a chief? Are you a chief without ever? Do you need the anchors to be a chief? Basically, if that makes sense. But do you like? I had the best mentor I ever had in my life. I was a QA LPO at the time, back in Atsugi, and he pulled me by myself in the Chiefs mess. And when that happens, you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. You're thinking to yourself like, oh, this guy. He sat me down, gave me a cup of coffee, and he says, I could literally give you the anchors right now, and you could be a chief and nobody know the difference. And I think that's the point that you need to kind of mentally be at, is that you don't need validation. If you are it, then you're it, regardless of your rank. The problem is other people need to see it that way. Again, it's never the destination. It's always the road between that's broken. But my advice to anybody wanting to make chief is simply be a chief. Take your test. You're going to have to pass that. So take your damn test and pass it. That's just a rule. You cannot avoid that until they change the entire ranking structure. But if you want to be a chief petty officer, simply be the chief petty officer. You could be E5 or E6. Just make it like who you are, if that makes any sense. And if you're not getting support from your first class mess, your E5 mess, or whatever the hell they call it, oh, sucks. But just keep doing what you do. You need to. It's gonna be a pain in the ass getting ostrich for your first classes, but when you pick up chief and they don't, well, they're like, "What'd you do differently?" Didn't care what you thought.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I can't like even remember how many people picked up chief, and everyone around was like, "Oh my god, like that person picked up chief." So it's interesting that you say that. You should already embody this person, because I know they train that from like E1, like always operate at the rank above you. But there are some, I know, at least for me personally, I felt that there was always a few restrictions to operating at the level above you. And I think that comes down to just people that you work with.
It absolutely does. If you're not empowered by those people above you, it really fucking makes it a pain in the ass. But the best chiefs you'll find, a good chunk of them didn't make chief for the 10-year mark.
Yeah. I'm curious, you said that overseas was a lot different than stateside. And I'm curious if you have an idea as to why it's so different.
Yeah, you're on your own. You're on your own in the midst. So I'm going to take you. I'll give you an example. It's the best analogy I can think of. I want to take you and I want to put you in an entire culture of deaf people, and you don't know ASL. You have 3 other people that can speak to you. You have to come together. Now, I'm saying the people that speak that are deaf are bad by any means, but you're human and you have a commonality with people that speak your language. I'm talking to you right now. If we're the only 2 people that existed in a culture of deaf people, we'd be bestest friends ever. We'd never fucking leave each other's side, and that's why it's a very close. And of course, you're going to have your bad eggs inside that community. It's just the nature of being human. But in the smaller commands, you have to come together more, because you're in such a not really shitty environment, but as far as you're just not in the most ideal environment. The worst environment you are in, the more people come together. The more beautiful, enchanting the environment is, the more friendly it is, the easier it is to get away from everything and do what you want to do as a person. Like, say you were just Rachel, not 82 Oswald. You're Rachel. You go off, do whatever. But if you're just 82 Oswald, you're like kind of bummed out. So the more beautiful and easier to access other avenues to become Rachel, the less likely it is community's going to come together unless you've been there for eternity and you grew up with the people around you. In a community where you don't have that luxury, you have to come together or nothing will ever get done. So when I was overseas and like at Sugi and over in Afghanistan, we had to come together. And especially the boat life's that way too, like shipboard life, you have to, because you're all you have. So you'd be amazed what happens when it's like, well, I got no choice, but we've got to get along. Yeah, you'd be amazed how quickly that builds camaraderie real fast. You find a common ground. It may take some time with some people, but you'll find a common ground real fast. Well, not real fast. I say real fast within at least a year.
That's interesting. The final question I have for you is actually a two-part question, because since you kind of come from that unique Chiefs mess, and I don't get a lot of prior Chiefs on my podcast.
You have none. You have none. Yeah, so I am the only one.
So far, yeah. And maybe this will encourage more people to speak up too about their experiences. I think it's really important for really people alike throughout the military, regardless of what rank they are, to hear from all levels, because at the end of the day, we, like you said, we're all people. And I know there's chiefs that struggle with mental health and don't feel supported. And there's, lower enlisted, and there's skippers that struggle with mental health and don't feel supported. But unless we talk about it, I think there's kind of always a stigma that, oh, well, you're higher up, you don't deal with these struggles. And so, no, I really appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing a few of your experiences that you've had. I'm curious, for just a final closing question here, two parts. What would you do to make the leadership slash chiefs mess better in the Navy? And then if you were in charge of the Navy as a whole, what would you do to make it better?
Man, you're going philosophical on me. It's like a final essay question that I got to think about for a second. Speaking of which, finals are next week for me, so thanks. Appreciate this.
Not a problem.
All right, so this is for the Chiefs mess. This is going to be kind of an oversimplified explanation, but I think the Chiefs mess needs to listen more. You got to have your bias. You always will. Shut up. Listen. Fuck your bias. There's being a little bitch for going to mental health. Keep that to yourself. I don't care. Keep it here. Listen. You had our mutual friend on talking about she had bipolar. People didn't listen. They just thought, just a chick with PMS, which could be true, but they didn't listen. They just brushed it off the minute they thought it. So the Chiefs mess needs to listen. Stop worrying about your jobs. Who gives a shit? You're in chief. That's it. E78 and 9. You're a fucking chief. Quit trying to worry about making the next pay grade. Who gives a shit? You're there. You're a chief petty officer. You're supposed to be the best of the enlisted, not some dude looking to make senior chief. You're supposed to tell officers to fuck off. They're doing it wrong. Legitimately. Who cares? I get there's rules to follow. I totally understand that, but we're not about rules. We're not about corporation. We're tradition. We're a culture. We're a series of traditions slammed together. Chiefs didn't exist until like about 100 some odd years ago, 200 years ago. We didn't exist as a rank. So they just need to shut up and listen and help where they can. A lot of stuff could be mitigated by giving a fuck. Yeah. So the biggest takeaway, if any chiefs are listening to this, stop caring about your rank. For the love of Christ, stop giving a shit about making senior chief. Who gives a shit? You're chief now. Your responsibilities are bigger than you could ever know. You are the mom. You are the dad. And that's it. Like what you say, people will take as a Bible verse. You need to understand that. So listen, shut up, listen. You don't know how to fix something, just don't fucking ignore it. Find out how to fix it. And if there's somebody better equipped than you, feel zero shame about taking that sailor who's going to one day replace your ass and giving them to your friend and say, hey, like you have an issue? Say, Rachel has an issue. Oh God, wow. That's like, don't be surprised when your head be like, holy crap, I don't know how to this. Talk to you and be like, okay, I hear what you're saying. And I'm going to admit to you, I am not equipped to handle this. I do, however, can find someone who can. So if you stick with me, I got your back. That right there means 1,000 more. It means so much more than me giving you an EP. Because your EP, that's crinkle that shit up, throw it out the window when you're out of the military. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit about your fucking EP. I'm sorry about my language. Listen, Chief Petty Officers, you need to listen, and you need to stop caring about your rank. You need to stop caring about, yes, there's a mission to be done, and it will get done. But your sailors are the ones who are making that mission happen. Okay? Not you. You help, and you were at that point one time. So yeah, again, an old motto. Don't forget where you came from, but they always do every time. So that's for that. That's for the Chief Petty Officers. To change the military. Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay, so there's an old book called The Lincoln's Navy. It's called Lincoln's Navy. If you want to read it, you're going to find a weird parallel between what's happening now and what happened back in Lincoln's day. So the book was, I'm kind of forgetting a lot of details. The book was about President Lincoln during the Civil War. Couldn't get anybody to join the military, the Navy, specifically the Union Navy, not the, it was Confederate Union Navy side. Couldn't get anybody to join the Navy. So he asked why. All right. Again, I'm simplifying. I'm leaving out a bunch of details. Turns out that's because the Navy absolutely sucked on everything. Sucked on eating, sucked on accommodations, sucked on pay, sucked on religious accommodations, sucked on bedding. They sucked. They just sucked. You know what was better? Working for civilians. You know what Lincoln did? Smart man. He brought up the standards of the Navy to that of civilians. I get the Navy is a very proud organization. I'm speaking solely on the Navy's behalf because I don't have much experience with the other branches other than working with them. The Navy is a proud organization. Absolutely get that. You should not be so proud as to eat a rotten apple. All right, you just don't do it. You see what the civilian sector is doing, and they're keeping people, offering them. And yeah, the military is slowly getting there, which is great. 20 years later, see what the civilian sector is doing, how they're retaining people and keeping them. Do that. Yeah, still have their traditions, have all that crap. Up your technical data, up your technology. Make that road to mental health easily accessible. Better food on the ships. Holy God Almighty! War fighting, I might as well live in a prison that serves them fucking bugs or something. Yeah, they need to basically. Why aren't they retaining people? Why do people not want to be in the Navy? Well, people just want that free college because college sucks and expensive, and they leave. Why? Because they can get a better job doing trades. Like I can make, if I were to actually, let's say I were reversed, right? I was a 20 years civilian sector. And I was working the same exact stuff I did while I was active duty. No kidding. And I wish I were exaggerating. I'd be making 6 figures a year a day. I was starting to make 6 figures a day, being retired when I had my bridge career for like 2 months and I quit. I was making almost 115,000 combined with my retirement, my VA benefits, and that job all in one lot. It was more lucrative for me to get out of the Navy than it was to stay in. Still is. Actually, I'm making the same amount of money that I was in Whidbey Island as a Chief Petty Officer, just hanging home, getting fat, going to school. No kidding. That's with my retirement, my 100%, and going to school money. I'm just chilling the hell out. So if a person were to get out of the military, say they were only 4 years, use a GI Bill, they get about $1,400, $1,700 every month just to go to school. Plus whatever job they had, which if they do it right, they could probably score themselves a $32 to $40 an hour job. So the Navy wants to retain people. I would bring it up to the civilian sector, everything, or Air Force. Bring up the Air Force standards. The Air Force got some pretty good standards, but yeah, no, they need to bring their jobs up to modern day standards. We need to adjust how the BCA works. That's a huge fucking hit for a lot of people. I've lost a lot of good people due to being too fat when they weren't. Adjust the BCA standards, completely obliterate stigmas. The best way you're going to do that, you're going to have to hold your chain of command accountable. You have to talk to your lower person and be like, hey, why didn't you simply go get treated? Well, my chief said, who's your chief? And then separate that chief from the command. Say, don't harass the junior sailor anymore. Because they're going to. Put more budgeting. Yes, the war fighting is indeed a huge thing. We need more money in technology. Still using Windows 7 when Windows XP came out. Come the hell on, man. NMCI is trash. They need to get rid of that and bring PSDs back. There's a lot I would change about the Navy. They've brought the Navy too close to being computerized, automatic, and that gets nothing done. That makes people nervous. When you don't have a person talk to over the phone, like, hey, I haven't gotten my my government credit card still saying I'm delinquent for $10,000 for my move, and I haven't gotten anything for PSD. Oh well, 6 months later you might get something. Cool, my credit score just fucking took a nosedive. Appreciate you. That needs to stop. That needs to end. So a complete sections, of course, those are our front lines that have to do last. But complete revampification of all the silly ass rules that are in the Navy. There's too many silly ass rules that are. I know why they're there. I absolutely get it. And I would still understand if it were 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But God, and for the love of God, let men grow their damn beards. Jesus Christ. Holy crap, just a 1/4-inch freaking beard. It ain't gonna break a seal. I know. I was an OSHA class and crap. Let men fucking have fun. You let women and stuff. Even women are like, dude, let the men have their beards. Come on, man. Just keep them nice and neat. I mean, look at this gorgeous thing right here, Rachel. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
But I would do what Lincoln did. I would bring the military up to civilian standards, because right now it is subpar as far as actual working environment. When it comes to camaraderie, different story. You're gonna do shit you've never seen in the military that you will not be able to do. You'll have a different attitude. It'll be my biggest challenge was, how do I talk to civilians? I still don't know how. I don't have a clue. I scare them now. They're like, some guy's gruff. He's yelling at me. He's got a ponytail. I know. But I'd bring that definitely up to, especially when it comes to technician work. Technician work is so easy outside the military. It's ridiculous, except for Boeing. Don't use Boeing as an example. If you look into it, you'll know why. But for the love of God, use technology. You got tablets. Yeah, I know. Oh, well, they'll burn it down. You're trusting sailors with multi-billion-dollar aircraft. You won't let them have a toaster in the room. I mean, it's silly. Give them fucking tablets. Give them better laptops. For the love of God, get rid of NMCI and just have like a home network. It'd be like 1,000 times better. Maybe hire that E3, E4 that plays World of Warcraft all day, that knows how to land shit up with an amazing ping. Maybe grab him and be like, yo, how'd you hook this up? Do it for us. That kind of thing. PSTs, please bring PSTs back. That was nerve-wracking going retiring, no PSTs.
For the record, he used air quotes when he said that. We just can't see you. So
no.
That's a lot.
Most people that the Navy says are fat are not. Listen, are not fat. BCA is not a gauge on how big you are as far as pants go. You got Reggie Bush, quarterback, that football dude. He would instantaneously fail fucking body fat standards in the military. Easy day. Guy's you could take a quarter, flip it off his abs, and it would come back and put a hole in your head. I mean, that guy is. Seriously, you see somebody's bodybuilders. Like, there's a few females that could like lift a Buick and beat the hell out of me. They sat on a scale, weighed like 250, and they're like, "Oh, you're fat." No, you're not fat, you dummy. If you can't, the thing I do like about the old days is that, let's say you failed the BCA, right? Okay, cool. Do your PRT. If you scored an excellent or higher, or maybe even like the satisfactory or higher, but you could just rock that PFA, it was up to the skipper whether or not he wanted to do anything. If the guy's like, nah, guy got an excellent, beat out that skinny dude that did a barely pass with a satisfactory low. I think that needs to waste that. And if you can't fit through a shit porthole, you might want to lay off the Twinkies. When it comes to life-saving techniques and you can't perform it because of your body size, then maybe you need to look at something. But if you can fit through a porthole in an aircraft carrier, get a body through, take that person, go all the way across the fucking flight deck and drop them off at a rescue chopper. But then you got that skinny dude who's fucking already out of breath lifting a bottle of milk. I mean, who the hell do you want? I mean, being the BCA is not a gauge of if you're actually fat or not. I need people to understand that. The BCA is just a PRT tool, and unfortunately, it is designed for people who used to live back in the 60s and 70s, who were skinny as rails. Our body styles have changed dramatically since then. It's just it hasn't caught up. So that poor woman who was on your show, who got obliterated, I understand why. Totally understand why. And it makes sense. Like, that's damn shame. who got her butt handed to her because of her weight issues and just mental health screwed her up. No, she was probably never fat. I guarantee you she was never fat. Just because the BCS was, oh, your body weight. Oh, it says here you're 32% fat. And you're like, where? You start getting mad. Note that it was not her. That was entirely the Navy's purity standards. So, I mean, does it change the fact that she had to go through all the nonsense of FEP and all that? No. That point in time, just to get as skinny as you can and hope you can fucking pass or run.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you so much for being on the show, Eric. For everyone listening, I do still have my petition open to the MCPON to change mental health in the Navy. There is a link below in the description for this podcast episode. Please go on there. It's on change.org. It has about 1,200 signatures right now, and the goal is to blow it up so that higher ups in the Navy can hear stuff like this and so their voices can be heard. So thank you again for being on the show. I appreciate your insight. I know so many other people appreciate your insight, and hope to see you again sometime.
If they got more questions for me, I mean, I don't know if I'll answer them right or not, but please, feel free to ask. if you just make a list, if they have more questions for me, just make a list and I'll come back on the show and be like, all right.
Absolutely. we can do an inside the Chief's Mess Q&A, and I bet you will get tons of questions.
I'm gonna get so many death threats. Oh my God. Like, how dare you? That's not how we do things. Yeah, it is. It's how you do things.
All right. Well, I appreciate you so much.
No worries, Rachel.
Thank you for taking the time to listen in today. With your support, we are able to increase awareness of the mental health issues affecting service members and veterans today, with the goal of creating positive change. If you got value from this episode, please take 30 seconds to subscribe and share this episode within your own network. Until next time, remember, your story matters, your mental health matters, and your story doesn't end here.